And this quilt block is about mindfulness, so we can live a life with intention. So if you haven't already, go purchase your pattern at Stitches Quilting for the Live Well, Live Strong quilt pattern. And we also have an exclusive quilt course with Zoom course instruction that's live and recorded if you would like to get that. So far we have made the Fuel quilt block and the Leisure quilt block. And now we are moving on to the Mindful quilt block. So all of these are really the beginning of the quilt blocks are pretty simple and easy to work with, and the quilt, we incrementally work on quilting skills as we sew along in the quilt. So I'm so excited to see you guys. I have everything cut out, so this should be, hi Liz, how are you? It's so good to see you. And I'm Deanna from Salt Lake City, Utah. So let me know where you're from. Let me know what the weather's like. We've got a sunny day here in Salt Lake City, and it feels really nice. Hello, Amanda. How are you? Okay, so I am going to change my screen to the overhead screen and or view. So right here, I have my fabric laid out and already cut for the Mindful quilt block. And this is a pretty simple quilt block. It's just a classic hourglass quilt block. And you can see we've got triangles here that are 45-degree angles. And we are just going to lay out our layout of the quilt blocks to match the pattern that you see inside the pattern. So we've got 2 pieces, and the original quilt comes with 2 pieces of the charcoal or a very dark gray, and then 2 pieces of the lipstick fabric. And I'm using all solids here so that you can see what mine is looking like, and it makes it a little bit easier as we're stitching away. So let's go ahead and get started here. This is going to be a pretty quick block. We are going to do the paper piecing block on Friday, but I have everything laid out here ready. I just figured we wouldn't make our videos long. So let's go ahead and lay these together. I'm doing right sides together. Of course, I'm with solid fabrics. I'm going to bring my camera, my sewing machine over a little bit more in the camera view. And I'm going to just start piecing right up here at this 90-degree angle. And go ahead and put this in here. What color thread? Hi, Delinda. What color thread do you guys use for piecing your quilt blocks? Just as a standard color, I'm just so curious what you actually use and what you prefer using when you're working with a quilt. Do you match your thread to the actual fabrics, or do you match your have like one piecing color of thread that you use all the time? I'm so curious what you guys use. Let me know in the comments. So I'm going to just go ahead and press that over. You can see how pretty that is. What a nice straight line it is. And once again, I'm going to just make sure these are laid out right. And we're going to go ahead and put these right sides together. And I'm going to stitch right along this seam here. Okay, so let me go ahead and bring this over, and I'm going to put this in my sewing machine. And what we want to do on this quilt block, so part of the Live Well, Live Strong quilt is we're working hard on matching our points and making sure we have our outside 1/4-inch seam allowances. So on this particular quilt block, we don't have to worry about the outside seam allowances, but we do want to make sure that what we have is matching in the center of the quilt block. Okay, so Mary uses gray or white. Jane, your recommendation, white thread. I use white thread. I do when I'm piecing an awful lot. Sometimes I'll throw in a cream or maybe a really light gray, but I've just become fond of white thread through the years. I don't know why. I have no idea. It's just crazy. But you can see here, I'm using white thread, and then I've got some pretty dark colors here. But as I pull on that, you really can't see my thread. So as long as you're working, your thread really isn't quite seen, but some people use gray. I've even had someone use a cucumber light green. Isn't that fun? Okay, so now we are going to put these right put each sides of our triangle for the hourglass quilt block, right sides together like this. And we are going to make sure that we're matching up our point in the center right there. So we're going to go ahead and place that right along there. I'm going to make it so that my seam allowances right here are nesting. So I'm going to have one seam allowance go that direction on this outside. So it's going to go this way. And you can see this one doesn't want to, isn't the way I pressed it, it isn't going over this way. So I'm going to fold that over my seam allowance so it's going this direction on this side. So you can see those two seam allowances, and I'm going to push them and I'm going to nest that seam. If you need to, stick a pin in it right along where your seam is matching. Try to make sure that you're not right where your sewing machine is going to run right on top of your pin or needle. And we're going to go ahead and just lay this down back in the sewing machine. And I'm using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And I'm going to feed this in through the sewing machine. And this quilt block will be finished. We have to press it though, because that's part of what we do, is we have to press this. Okay, so there we go. Let's go ahead and do a live video test run and see if I matched my points. There, very good. Yes, you can definitely press your seams to the darker side. So you can see on this seam right here, when I pressed it, I didn't press it over to the darker side. So let me go ahead and press that again. Had I pressed them both the same way, my seams would have naturally matched up. But let's go ahead and open up this quilt block. And we're going to just press that open without stretching any of the fabrics. And we're going to just leave that right like that. So that looks like a great quilt block. Definitely has a good match there of our point. But I do want to show you something. So on this quilt block, remember when we did the leisure quilt block this last week? We had to make certain that we had a 1/4 inch seam allowance allowed on the side of our quilt blocks. So when you're making a quilt block like the hourglass quilt block, the way that it's designed, you don't have to keep 1/4 inch seam allowances here. You do want to go ahead and trim off your dog ears. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And I'm going to trim those off. And then I am actually going to sew this. Go ahead and get our extra little threads out of there, our dog ears. I am now going to lay this right sides together on top of the leisure quilt block. And I'm going to demonstrate again that we need this 1/4 inch seam allowance right here. And when I place these right sides together, I have no 1/4 inch seam allowance on this side to match. And I don't have any matching points here. So I'm going to lay these like this. This is it. You are piecing these like this if you are constructing the classic version. If you're doing negative space or the bed runner, you won't put them in this order. But I do want to demonstrate how we keep that 1/4 inch seam allowance. So remember here, we've got an extra little flap left over, and we want that point of the red point to show up. So in order to do that, we are going to stitch across the block. And when we stitch across the block, we are going to intersect our stitching line right where these stitching lines intersect right here. We've got a diagonal and a vertical one right there. So let's go ahead and lay this down. Hi, Donna. Oh, you haven't received it yet. It's been over a month. Yes, I will definitely. Oh, the modern squared chic pattern. Are you talking about that one or the Live Well, Live Strong? If you ordered it as a PDF, it is in your inbox, ready to download. If you have a hard copy, if you ordered the actual hard copy, then that's a separate thing where I will mail you something. So Donna, I will have to check your order and see what it says. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead, and I'm keeping in mind that I'm going to cross over my seam intersection there so that I am definitely can show that red triangle point on the edge of the leisure quilt block. Okay, let's talk about mindfulness, ladies. So we need to be mindful for our health and wellness. So when we cross a street, and let's go ahead and take a peek at this, see if I matched my seams. Okay, so let's look at that. Oh, perfect match. So let's go ahead and press this out real fast. But let me go ahead and go ahead and put that in there. All right, and let me show you another thing. As I matched this up, I've got my point matching right there. Isn't that beautiful? But you can see over here, I now have a 1/4 inch seam allowance when I joined this the hourglass block to the leisure block. And you can see that right there. And that's what's going to be my next guide as I sew rows together. Okay, so let's go to the way I organize my quilt pattern. And we're going to go to the Mindful Quilt block, the worksheet. Sorry. Oh dear, are mine? Okay, yeah, there they are. Here we go. It is right. Got to find the right page. Sorry guys, we're on block 3. I should be able to find that easily. Okay, so for mindfulness, when we're crossing over these are your worksheets for mindfulness. So let's go ahead. When you're crossing a street, you want to be mindful about the traffic that is crossing back and forth. And you teach children that. But often we lose some of our mindfulness of what we want to do so that we are crossing the street intentionally so we won't get hit by a car, right? But if we are mindful and intention in more of our daily living activities for health and wellness, we will be more calm, more relaxed. We will have increased energy. We will have self-confidence. We will decrease anxiety and decrease stress. So we want to be mindful with our body and our spirit, and be mindful of what we are doing. You know, enjoy some deep breathing throughout your day, whatever that might be. So let me go ahead and go to the front camera, but I do have worksheets for you guys so that you guys can go ahead and study mindful this week. And some of the goals that you can work on are some deep breathing exercises throughout the day, being mindful and intentional in how you talk to people, or in how you express a concern you have, or how you express a thank you or some gratitude to somebody. So, but having that mindfulness in our lives definitely helps improve our health and wellness as women. Okay, you guys, this is the tutorial for the Mindful Quilt Block. I'll be back on Friday and we will go over the version for the tiny paper piecing of the Live Well, Live Strong quilt. So the classic version is behind me, that's 60 by 60 inches. The foundation paper piecing version is right here. And it's a 20 inch by 20 inch quilt. So I will be back on Friday and we will piece the Mindful teeny tiny quilt block. And you could also make this quilt in the negative space layout over here that is twin, full, queen, or king sized. And we have a new bonus coming with the bed runner size. So anyways, let me know if you need to know where to find information about the Live Well, Live Strong quilt. Just ask in the Facebook comments and I'll get a message to you. If you're interested in the Live Well, Live Strong course where we're doing Zoom instruction, then you can also find that link in the Facebook comments or in the YouTube description. So I hope you guys have a great day. I'll be back on Friday and we'll be doing the Mindful Hourglass Quilt Block as foundation paper piece. So we've got the paper piecing on the back. The paper piecing pattern is complimentary with your original pattern right now. So go ahead and pick that up and get that downloaded. Amanda, I will, you get the worksheets. I'll send you the link of where you pick up and download all the worksheets. Okay, can't wait to see you guys. I will chat with you guys in a little bit and see you on Friday. And remember, be mindful and feel a little bit less anxiety and stress this week. See you on Friday. Bye-bye.